All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie Mueller, and I am the Membership and Events Coordinator for the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the coordinator for the Medina County Safety Council. We are so excited to have you here with us for our April virtual meeting. Welcome to all of our guests from the Stark County Safety Council. Thank you so much for joining us. So just a couple housekeeping rules. We do ask that you please keep your microphone on mute. You can go to the bottom of the screen and click on the mute button. We also ask that you please keep the camera off on your computer. This will help with the bandwidth so that you're able to hear and see our speaker. We will take questions today. So if you do have questions, please post them into the chat box. Carrie and I will relay those to our speaker, as well as you can also ask us any questions along the way if you do have questions regarding Safety Council or BWC specific. So you can see information on that, how to do that. So our agenda for today is our welcome, and then Carrie is going to do our update. We'll have our presentation about the effects of blue light, which we're so looking forward to. We will do question and answers following the presentation, and then we will adjourn. So I am going to turn this over to Carrie to give our BWC update.
Awesome, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm excited. Some of you from Stark are here with us. That's very exciting. My name is Carrie Gray. I am the BWC safety consultant that works with the Medina County Safety Council and the Summit County Safety Council. I work with all of Medina County, and everybody out there has their own safety person that they can work with from the BWC. There's my contact information. So if you were to need me, that's how you can get a hold of me. If you want to go to the next slide, Stephanie, that would be great. So just a couple things, a couple updates from the BWC right now. We as safety folks are still virtually only. We are here to help you virtually, and we're doing the best that we can, but just, let us know if you have things that we can help you with, but we are only virtual at this point. There are some safety webinars coming up. May 11th, we have a special 2-hour, it's really good. If you've never seen Brian Zacchetti give a seminar, he is so good. He's conducting safety inspections in the workplace. The May 25th, I'm doing fatigue. Is it affecting your safety work or your safety program? June 8th, we have OSHA knocking on the door. And actually this afternoon, there's one on millennials as well. So there's a lot of webinars. Now, the one that's not on here, and just to let you know that the stand down for falls for OSHA, the annual program, is May 3rd through the 7th. And so on May 4th, and you're going to remember that because May the 4th be with you, right? At 10:30, we are having a safety stand down event for general industry. So typically it's always construction. That's who's the main focus for that stand down. And it's going to be, we're doing one for general industry. And so that is going to come out to you soon. I'm waiting on the final flyer to be able to submit the information for that, or to send that out to all of you. So that is coming your way. Be looking for that. I need every single one of you in there because you all have the risk of folks falling at your facility. So know that that's coming, and we're going to need you to join in on that. Okay, so the next slide shows the classes. And so in addition to the webinar, we have a bunch of classes that we're offering, and this is showing the April classes through May. And these are just like our classes we would have in person. It's a little different because it's virtual, but those are being led by folks all around the state. So it's you'll get to see different instructors than you normally would if you were in Canton. But there's the list of the classes, and that's all available. You can see that website at the top. It's all available at that website. The next slide is going to talk about a couple other resources that we do have. And so we have a safety micro training video series. And the first one that's out on right now is HASCOM. There's a couple other videos in there, and that is available to you, and we're working on a whole bunch more. So that is on the BWC YouTube page. In addition to that, we have some brand new, updated, ready, awesome sample written safety programs. And I know the fall one, we're trying really hard to get that one out by the fall stand down event. So there's going to be a general industry fall one, and that's not something you normally see. So that's really exciting. And then we also have updated safety talks. And so we've always had safety talks. These are like toolbox talks. and those are available out on our website. And if you were to search for sample written programs or safety talks, you'd be able to find those really easy on the BWC website. Okay, so the other thing that I did want to mention, and I know I mentioned it this last time, but just to kind of keep your ears peeled for this, is OSHA is working towards a COVID-19 standard, and they sent out their national emphasis program and the guidance for that, the directive for that. So feel free to look on OSHA's website. But OSHA's also made a series of short videos, like the micro videos, offering tips and best practices and sample programs and all kinds of sample stuff out on their website. So don't be, look out there for that. They're going to give you a lot of good information. And then the last slide talks about our safety grants. And the safety grants, they haven't brought back the traditional, figure out how to reduce injury safety grant, but they have brought back some of the niche grants. So the grants that we have available out there right now, the trench grant, the school safety grant, firefighter exposure grant, and the persons working with the DD grant, that's available out there now. And those are similar to what they were in the past. And those are something that you can take an advantage of. So with that, that's all my updates. Be watching for the May 4th event. That's going to be coming your way. But with that, I'm telling you, I'm really excited that you guys are all here to hear about this blue light. Okay. And I will tell you, I heard Delia give this a while ago, and it changed actually some of the stuff, and it actually made me a much better sleeper. So I thank her for that. That is wonderful. I'm going to do her bio right now and give her introduction. So Delia, if you want to share your slides while we're getting this, we're perfect. Okay. So Dr. Delia Treaster is an ergonomic technical advisor for the Division of Safety and Hygiene at the BWC. She's a certified professional ergonomist with over 20 years experience helping companies reduce their risk of ergonomic injuries. She has conducted training on basic principles of ergonomics, ergonomic risk factors, and ways to improve workplaces. Prior to joining the BWC, Dr. Treaster has worked with research scientists at Battelle Memorial Institute and as a senior ergonomist specialist at Travelers Insurance for Humanitech. I can't say that. She holds a master's degree in human factors engineering and a Ph.D. in occupational biomechanics, both from the Ohio State University. So if you could, down at the very bottom of your screen, you'll see a reaction button. And if you could give a applause, everybody can go ahead and click the little applause button next to their reaction. And let's give Delia a round of applause and a warm Medina and Stark County Safety Council welcome. It's all yours.
Delia, on your phone, press *6.
Okay, it's
There
a
you
little
go.
tricky. There's all these mute buttons and unmute buttons, and sorry, we tried to work the bugs out. So thank you so much for inviting me. I am really excited to bring this talk to you, and it's something that I developed some interest in a while ago, and I also have changed the way I do things. And I do have to clarify, I am not coming to you from the Bahamas, although given our forecast for the next few days in Ohio, I think I'd really rather be in the Bahamas right now until our upcoming snowstorm is over and done with, and we're back into 70-degree weather. But be that as it may, I am in Columbus, Ohio, and right now it's sunny and warm, but I think it's going to get worse. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to be talking about the effects of blue light. And obviously, we are surrounded by light everywhere. And certainly with the advent of electric lights, we can have light 24/7 if we want to. So whether it's from the sun or from light bulbs, we have light all around us. But we should realize that not all light is created equal. Now, I'm sure you know that if you take a white light or just regular light and put it through a prism, you'll get a beautiful rainbow of colors. And that is really kind of letting you know that white light is composed of the entire wavelength of color. And when you combine all the colors together of light, you get white light. Now, this is different from paint or ink. If you put all the different colors of paint or ink together, you'll get black ink or black paint. So light and ink are different. Now, it's important to understand what light is. And I remember asking this question when I was in high school, what is light? And I was told, well, it's part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And that did not satisfy my question. I didn't know what the heck the electromagnetic spectrum was. And I'll be honest, I still don't get it. But anyways, here is the electromagnetic spectrum. And if you take a look at what this is made up of, you see on the far right, you've got radio waves over here. And then you get into your AM, FM microwave. And then all the way over here, you've got your X-rays. And this is all part of the electromagnetic spectrum, which totally baffles me. How is it that long radio waves are second cousin to microwaves and third cousin twice removed from X-rays and gamma rays? That just didn't make sense to me, but that is what the electromagnetic spectrum is. And white light, or what we see as light, is just a tiny sliver of this huge spectrum. And I've sort of just broken it out and expanded it for you here. You see all the colors of the rainbow. Now I want to draw your attention to this spectrum. What we have is very short frequencies on the right. And as we move from right to left across your screen, the frequencies get higher and higher and higher. So when you're into gamma rays, you're talking a very high frequency wavelength. But the wavelength itself starts out on the right side, they're very long wavelengths. And as you move from right to left, the wavelengths get shorter and shorter. So it's a little confusing and opposite. The frequency and the wavelengths go in different directions. And the thing to realize is that as you go from right to left, you're going from low energy to high energy. So we kind of intuitively know, or we could probably have figured out that radio waves aren't very dangerous and we don't worry about them too much. But if you were told you're in a room and you're being bombarded with X-rays, you would probably jump up and run out really quickly because you know X-rays are pretty bad for you. So the high energy stuff on the left side is your frequencies of greater danger. And this relationship does hold true with light. The wavelengths on the right are lower energy than the wavelengths on the left. So blue light is higher energy and more dangerous, if you want to think of it that way, than red light. Now, when it comes to the problem with blue light, one of the problems is that it tends to be harder on our eyes. And one reason is that you've got blue light is more troublesome for our eyes. It's harder for our eyes to process or to focus in blue light. Now, the different wavelengths of light have what are called different refractive indexes as they pass through our eyeballs into the back of the eye to the retina. And it turns out that our eyes can focus easily when we're looking at things in red or green light. We can see fine details. But our retinas don't handle blue wavelengths. And this graph shows you the sensitivity of the different sensors of our eyes to the different wavelengths. And it turns out that we've got better detectors in our eyes for green and red than for blue. Only about 2% of the cones in our eyes actually can detect blue light. 64% of the cones in our eyes can detect the red wavelength, and 52 can detect green. So blue light tends to also scatter more widely within the eyes. And that's why with some of the newer headlights, they're called high density discharge or high intensity discharge lamps. They have a bluish tint, and people complain about them. You know, if you're looking at a car, the oncoming lights are these HID, high intensity discharge lamps, the blue LEDs. You may find that there's like a halo around those lights, and there's more glare. And certainly older drivers have a harder time dealing with these headlights. So you might hear complaints from your parents or your grandparents who are a little bit older. And that's because the eyes of an older person are more sensitive to glare, and there's more of a scattering effect of that light within the eyeball itself. So it's just harder on our eyes to be doing things in this blue light. Now, another thing to realize about blue light is it actually can damage our eyes. So I need to kind of divert into a little bit of anatomy here. So what we have here is a cross-section of the eye, and you can see in the front of the eyeball, the cornea and the iris and the lens. And then towards the back of the eye, you've got the retina, which is where the cones and rods are. And in the middle is this vitreous chamber that's full of vitreous humor. So that is not a room full of sticky comedians. This vitreous humor is actually a thick liquid like substance. And the thing to realize about what can damage our eyes, we've all heard of a cataract. And that is actually a clouding or a yellowing of the lens that are in the front of the eye. And we know that UV light, ultraviolet light, does cause this kind of damage to the lens. And you probably know to look when you're looking for sunglasses, to look for that little sticker that says what kind of UV light it protects, whether it protects against UVA, B, or C. So this is something that we know about in terms of ultraviolet UV light and the damages on the front end of the iris or of the eyes and can cause cataracts. Now cataracts are, you know, they're not good, but you have the option of getting surgery to correct this problem and get rid of the cloudy lens. You can just take out the lens and put an artificial lens, and then you're good to go. The thing about blue light is that it is a higher energy wavelength, and it reaches further deeper into your eyeball and actually hits the retina, and it could cause something called macular degeneration. And macular degeneration is a pretty serious type of injury to your eye. This is what happens. This is how your vision will change if you have macular degeneration. So normal vision is shown on the left. You can see the two boys very clearly. But under a condition of macular degeneration, you see that the faces are fuzzed out. And that's really what happens. Macular degeneration affects your central vision, but it leaves the peripheral vision intact. So it's often called age-related macular degeneration for obvious reasons. It is related to age. And what we have here with age-related macular degeneration, as I mentioned, it degrades your central vision. It doesn't affect your peripheral vision. So a person who has this is considered to be legally blind you can't drive, you can't recognize faces when you look at someone, you can't read. So this really does impact your life. With the fact that you do have peripheral vision, you can kind of get around, you can walk around and walk through rooms or up and down stairs very carefully and be able to negotiate through space because you can tell what's happening in your peripheral vision. But if something was directly in front of you, you wouldn't be able to see it. You might actually walk into it. Now, it is caused by cumulative damage from high energy visible light. In other words, blue light. That high energy light is the blue wavelength, and that can cause cumulative damage to the retina. It is the leading cause of blindness for people who are over 50 years old. So pretty serious things. Something like the prevalence for people who are 85 to 85 years old is something like 30% have macular degeneration. Now the problem, or one of the problems, is that there's no cure. There's no cure for macular degeneration. Unlike cataracts, where you can have surgery to replace the lens that are clouding over, there's nothing you can do for macular degeneration. It is age-related. It is due to cumulative damage. So prevention is really going to be your only option, or your best option. So that's kind of one of the bad things about blue light. In addition to the impact on our eyes being harder to see and focus in blue light and also causing damage, another thing about blue light is that it can disrupt our circadian rhythm, and it does this by suppressing melatonin. So let me first talk about our circadian rhythms. Our bodies are governed by a biological clock, and there are a number of different things that happen during a 24-hour cycle. So let me just kind of walk you quickly through the circadian rhythm to show you some of the changes that can happen. So if we start here at the bottom at midnight, that would be the normal 6 o'clock, but this is a 24-hour clock. So we're gonna start here at the bottom with midnight. Your deepest sleep, assuming you have a pretty decent bedtime, your deepest sleep is gonna occur around 2 o'clock in the morning. Your lowest body temperature is around 4:30 in the morning. So your body temperature actually fluctuates up and down throughout this 24-hour circadian rhythm. And it's lowest in the very early morning. Melatonin secretion stops around 7:30 in the morning. And that would be a good thing because melatonin actually is the thing that helps you sleep. Interestingly enough, you might not realize this, but you should schedule your most mentally demanding work for 10 o'clock because that's when you have the highest degree of mental alertness. Your best coordination is in the afternoon. Your greatest amount of cardiovascular efficiency and strength is in the later afternoon. So you might want to schedule your workout for, right after work, because that's when you're going to be the strongest. As we could continue through our circadian rhythm, go around the clock, your blood pressure and your body temperature actually reach their peak in the early evening. So again, if you are taking your temperature at different times of the day, this idea that you're 98.7 is normal, that's not exactly true. It actually will normally fluctuate up and down. And then in the early evening, that's when you start having melatonin secretion. So 2100 hours is when you start to have it to begin, and then it will stop little less than 12 hours later. So around 7:30 in the morning is when your melatonin is going to stop. Now, melatonin is known as the sleep hormone. And it is produced by this tiny little gland deep within your brain. So here's a cross section of your brain. And what I'm showing you is a bunch of structures you probably don't normally see. And these are structures deep within the brain. We're looking at brain stem and, the cerebellum and things like that. So the pineal gland is this tiny little gland, and this gland produces melatonin. And melatonin's job is to synchronize your circadian clock. It basically kind of keeps your clock on schedule. Melatonin is produced when it is dark outside. It is suppressed by light. And it's been called the Dracula hormone. So that might be one way, if you kind of don't remember when melatonin peaks and when it decreases, think of what Dracula does. So Dracula comes out at night in the dark, and Dracula goes away, hides back in his coffin or wherever he goes when it's light out. So that's kind of what melatonin does. It comes out at night, it's produced in the dark, and its production is suppressed by light. Now, you may wonder, as I did when I was researching this, how the heck does the pineal gland, which is deeply buried within your brain, how does it know when it's light outside? I mean, it's not in your eyeball. So I need to get into just a little bit of neural anatomy. And this was actually extremely interesting. So let me teach you about these two pathways of light. The first pathway is the one that we've known about for years. It's the visual pathway. It's how we see. And the senses, senses that detect light are the rods and the cones. So the cones are your color detectors and the rods are your light detectors. So these are in the eye, and there's a pathway where the light enters the eye, and then the rods and the cones send the signal to the visual cortex, which, believe it or not, is all the way at the very back of your brain. So the optic nerve connects the eyeballs to the visual cortex. And the visual cortex is really how your brain makes sense of what your eyes are detecting. And it puts everything together and figures out, your brain actually interprets all that information. So that is pathway number one, the visual pathway. The second pathway, pathway number two, is the non-visual pathway. And instead of rods and cones being the neurons that sense light, what we have, and this is a fairly new discovery just a few years ago. So this is really revolutionary. Knowing or learning about something called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. That is quite a mouthful, I know. But let me kind of break that apart for you. So what we have are visually photosensitive. So that means these cells respond to light. They are retinal, so they're in the retina, that's part of the eyeball. But they're not rods and cones, they're called ganglion cells. That's a special type of nerve cell that people actually didn't know for a long time what these cells did. And when they discovered this whole new pathway for light. So instead of projecting to the visual cortex, these retinal ganglion cells project to something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And again, another big mouthful. So we're going to just call it the SCN. So that's something deep inside the brain, the structure, and I'm not going to go into the neural anatomy of that. But anyways, the SCN projects to or has connections to the pineal gland. So when the SCN gets the light signal through the eyes, but it's through these retinal cells. It will send a message over to the pineal gland, and it will tell the pineal gland either that it's light outside, so the pineal gland should stop producing melatonin, or it will tell the pineal gland it's dark. The eyeballs are not detecting light. It's dark, so the pineal gland needs to kick in and start producing the melatonin. So that's how it works. Now, we want melatonin at night. So if we have light at night, we can suppress the melatonin. So having light at night is bad. Having blue light at night is worse. And that's because the blue wavelength is particularly effective in stopping melatonin production. I'll describe this a little bit more detail in a moment. And it turns out that blue LED lights are the worst. And we're finding blue LED lights everywhere, aren't we? I was just going around my house and taking pictures of different things. And this was the power button on my printer. This is the power button on my power strip. It's blue. It's lit up by blue LEDs. And we're finding them in appliances, the readouts for, say, a coffee maker is this beautiful blue LED. Even, things like the ice maker, activate it and this wonderful blue light shows. If I open my refrigerator, I see this bright, very bright LED light that has a blue tint to it. And this is a close-up of the power button on my personal home monitor. And that thing is so daggone bright. I actually brought my light meter home with me to measure it because it was so bright and it was so annoying. And I measured it, it was 200 lux. This thing is so disruptive. It's at the bottom of my monitor, just the power button to let me know my monitor's got juice. But it's so bright, I literally have to cover up with not just a piece of paper, but a piece of cardboard because it will shine right through the paper. So I had to take a thick piece of cardboard and tape it to cover this because if I'm looking at my monitor and I'm working on my computer, this light is so distracting because it's so bright and it's blue. So blue light is particularly disruptive. Now, I want to talk about LEDs because with the focus on energy efficiency, a lot of people, and me included, I've done this too, have replaced a lot of your incandescent lights and maybe even your CFLs, your fluorescent lights with LED. And you may think, well, it's a white LED, there's no blue in it, but you are deceived. It actually has a lot of blue. So this is a spectral analysis of a white LED light. And you can see that it has a really strong pop of blue, of energy in the blue spectrum. Yes, it does have a lot of green and red. And because of these other colors, when you put it together, your eyes will actually see white light. But if you were to do a spectral analysis, you'll see that there's a lot of blue in this. And that's because the way they make LEDs nowadays is they start with a blue LED and then they put a yellow phosphor on top of that. So somehow within the magic of physics, this combination of the blue LED and the yellow phosphorus produces what our eyes see as white light, but it's got a lot of blue in it. So when it comes to LED lights, you really can't get away from blue light. Just for comparison, I thought it'd be interesting to do a spectral analysis of a fluorescent light bulb. And you can see that this spectral output looks totally different than the LED one. You do have, yes, a pop of blue right there, spike of blue, but it's the size of this and the amount of energy isn't nearly as much as it was with the white LED. And you can see you've got green and red. So these together, again, when you combine red, green, and blue, combined together, your eyes will see white light. But fluorescent lights are not nearly as powerful with the blue spectrum. Now, I mentioned earlier, I hinted that melatonin is suppressed by blue light. And this is from a study done back in 2001. And it was, what they were doing was they were looking at what different frequencies of light were the most effective in suppressing melatonin production. And this is what the study showed. And you can see if I put an overlay of the rainbows, the different spectrums, you can see, yeah, indeed, the greatest suppression is seen in the range of blue light. So this is proof of the impact of blue light for decreasing the melatonin production. So blue light at night is going to lower our melatonin production. And when we don't have enough melatonin, what we have is not really good sleep. Because again, melatonin is the sleep hormone. So it helps us to go to sleep. We don't have enough melatonin, we don't sleep well. And if you're not sleeping at night, you're sleepless at night, maybe you're sleepy at work. And that's not a good thing. Sleeplessness or sleepiness at work is a big problem. Studies have shown nearly a quarter of workers are affected by chronic sleeplessness. So they are not sleeping well at night. And what happens is, well, people end up sleeping during the day. I mean, confession time. How many of you have dozed off in one of your multiple Zoom meetings? You know, you turn your camera off and someone's droning on and you just had lunch and you're not in a physical meeting, so people aren't going to notice if you nod off, and you know, you're sitting at your desk and it's quiet and you know, you drift off. So definitely the studies that showed 10% of people would fall asleep at their desks. This was in the before time. Now that we're all working from home virtually, that number, I'm going to guess, is probably a little higher. And certainly if we've got people who are driving for work, that's going to be a danger to them. And then think about your professional drivers who are on the road a lot. And, you know, truck drivers were considered essential workers. And so they were working even when a lot of other businesses were shut down, you know, people working from home, but the truck drivers are out there driving because, you know, we're all ordering things on Amazon, and we want our hand sanitizer and our masks back. A year ago, everyone wanted those things. So there's a lot of demand for drivers. And those people who are driving for a living, especially if they're driving a big truck, you know, we would not want them to be sleepy as they're driving. And certainly sleepiness during the day or sleeplessness at night is a pretty significant problem for our country. So there's one estimate, I think it was a survey by the National Sleep Foundation, this was back in 2012, found that insomnia costs an average of $2,200 per worker in terms of reduced productivity, for a total cost of $63 billion to the economy. So, and that was 2012, so what, almost 10 years ago. So you know, translate that into number of working days, that's like 11 working days lost per worker per year. in terms of lost productivity due to, sleeplessness at night and sleepiness during the day. I thought it'd be interesting to show you the impact of electronics because in addition to, just light bulbs, and whether they're LEDs or CFLs or even if you still have incandescent lights, lighting up our environments at night, we certainly do have a lot of electronic gadgets, and those produce light. And I thought it'd be interesting to kind of show you what is the impact of these electronic gadgets. And there was this really interesting experiment that was done. Again, it's been a few years, but they were looking at the nighttime use of tablets. And I think this was back when everybody was using iPads. So this was an experiment with iPads. And what they did was they did a study with 3 different experimental conditions. By the way, the subjects were 13, basically teenagers. So I just have to laugh and say this had to be the teenager's dream. They get to use their tablets late at night, and they get to be paid because they're part of an experiment. So this had to be their dream experiment to be involved in. So the conditions they were looking at was looking and using a tablet at full brightness. It was measured at 40 lux. So that was kind of the normal condition. Then there were 2 other conditions. One, and this is the really experimental conditions, they took the tablet and then they put blue LED goggles on the people as they were using the tablet. And the brightness of these goggles was only 40 lux, so they weren't terribly bright. So that was condition, the second condition. And the third condition was your control condition. So they had the people wearing orange goggles. Now, the orange goggles or yellow tinted goggles will filter out the blue wavelength. So what we have is kind of 2 extreme conditions. One with a lot of blue, and that would be condition number 2, the blue LED goggles. And then one condition with no blue light at all. That would be condition 3 with the orange goggles. And then right in the middle is your normal usage tablet without these special goggles, one way or another. So if you take a look at the spectral output or analysis of the conditions, this dotted line over here is the orange goggles condition. So you can see that there isn't very much, there's no wavelengths above or below 550 nanometers. So there's no blue light at all. You take a look at the condition here, and this is your normal, or this is your iPad with the blue LEDs, and then the dark one is your iPad condition. So there's a lot of blue in it, but then there's also red and green. Sorry about that. In this condition. So what they were doing was they're measuring how much melatonin was suppressed. So this is not how much they produced, but how much was suppressed. And so this graph shows the 2 conditions, and the experimental condition lasted 2 hours. So it went from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. And that's the time when you would normally have your melatonin ramping up. And you can see that after 2 hours, this is the tablet-only condition. You do see something like a 20-25% reduction in melatonin. And this was considered to be statistically significant from the control condition. And then this one here shows you what it looks like when you do have the blue LED. And this is sort of the extreme condition. Definitely when you've got blue LED, along with looking at the goggles or using the iPad, you have almost a 50% reduction in melatonin right off the bat. And after 2 hours of use, again, they're kind of juicing the blue light exposure with these blue goggles. So it is an extreme condition, but you could see the impact continues to grow after 2 hours of use of the tablet with the blue LED goggles. So, and by the way, if you're wondering how they measured melatonin, they actually, apparently melatonin is produced in your saliva. So they actually had the subjects put a cotton ball in their mouth and kind of chew on it for a while until it was saturated with saliva. And then they could take that cotton ball and then measure the amount of melatonin in it. So they did this measurement at the beginning of the experiment, after 1 hour, and then at the end after 2 hours. So I wouldn't want to be the researcher would have to take the cotton balls out of their mouth and measure, but that's how they did it, in case you're wondering. So what is the effect of using our electronics at night? And, let's be honest, we're using our electronics at night. Get on our smartphones, we're checking, whatever it is on our smartphones as we're laying in bed, right before we go to sleep. So light at night, how much are we getting and where are we getting it from? Now, people have asked me, what about, TV? Are you getting light from that? And the answer is yes, of course, you are getting light from that. But think about how close your TV is to your eyes versus how close your phone is to your eyes. TV's feet away. The smartphone is inches away from your eyes. So the amount of light entering your eyes is going to be quite a bit different. And then what about our kids? Kids nowadays, I didn't get a computer until I was in high school, college, whatever. But kids now, even before they're able to read, you give them little tablets and they can swipe. They don't have to type it in. They can just swipe and they can be reading the story or watching a movie or whatever. And it's a small, cheap little electronic device. They could take it to bed with them. And instead of, back in the day, you wanted to read at night, you had to get the flashlight and go under the covers and, read your book. Well, now they just have this device that emits light, so there's no need for a flashlight. And they could be reading at night. So how much light at night are kids getting? So moving on to recommendations, things to think about. How can you protect yourself? Make sure that you're not, getting this light at night, this blue light at night that could be suppressing your melatonin. So here's the recommendations. I've got several of them for you. First of all, you want to get a lot of light exposure during the day. So I don't want you to think, oh no, I shouldn't have any light at all. You actually do want light. You want it in the day. And it's especially powerful to have a lot of light exposure late in the afternoon. So if you can at all work it out, try to go for a walk, go outside and expose your eyes and your brain to sunlight. Even on a cloudy day, you get a lot of light, a lot more light if you're outside compared to if you're inside and you're getting artificial lighting from office lights and whatever you happen to have in your house. When you do this, get a lot of light exposure during the day, this actually helps increase your melatonin production at night. And I think what your brain needs is contrast. So high light exposure during the day and then low light exposure at night. And then your brain kind of knows, oh, light, no melatonin, dark, produce melatonin. So having light exposure during the day is a good thing. You want to reduce the exposure of light at night, especially blue light, especially LED lights. And this does include the white LED lights that you might have. I several years, remodeled my kitchen and replaced all my lights with LEDs. And I thought, man, this is fantastic because I have now so much better energy efficiency. I mean, I think if I have all the lights in my kitchen turned on, it actually uses less electricity than just one 60-watt incandescent light. So it was an enormous savings in terms of energy. But now I've got a lot of blue light that looks white, but so it kind of had an unintended consequence. So what are some of the things you can do? You can use goggles if you want. They look kind of strange, but yellow goggles that will help block light. You can actually buy regular glasses, prescription glasses, that have blue blocking built into them. So that's like an added feature. At least when last time I ordered glasses, they'd asked me if I wanted to add this, in addition to anti-glare and scratch-resistant options for the glasses. I have the option of having a blue blocking. I think they must put some sort of material in that filters out the blue light. By the way, just as a side note, the reason why sharpshooters wear yellow goggles or orange goggles is specifically because this will block out the blue light. And sharpshooters or other types of activities where you need really, really high visual acuity, goggles such as this that block out blue light can give you just enough of an edge, especially if they're doing competition shooting, give you just enough of an edge, sharpen your eyes just a tiny bit more. That can make a difference if you're in a situation where you need high visual acuity. Some other things to think about in terms of your electronics. A lot of smartphones and electronic devices have some kind of nighttime feature where you can actually turn it on, and I think on my phone I can actually specify what hours of the day I want it to come on. So maybe starting from like 9 o'clock at night to say 7 o'clock in the morning. It actually, the electronic software will change the light spectrum and make it a little bit more yellow. What it does is it really takes out some of that blue. And it's done via software. So you can have that done. If your phone doesn't have that ability, you might be able to buy some sort of like a filter that you could physically place over your screen that would be a yellow filter that would filter out the blue light. So that's something else you can do. A couple of things you can do in terms of electronics. I mean, I know we're all addicted to our smartphones and we don't want to give them up. So if you really have to check Facebook right before you go to sleep, put your blue blocking filter on so that you don't have blue light exposed, or you're not exposing your eyes to blue light. If you're like me and you're just on the computer all the time, you can actually use this software. It's called f.lux, and it's free. So it's a really easy thing to put onto your computer, and you could what you do is you put in your location, so it knows where you are, knows which time zone you're in, and it knows what time of the year it is, and it will automatically reduce the amount of light, specifically the blue light, as you go through the evening. So as you go later and later during the day, the amount of blue light reduces automatically in this. And you can use your computer monitor more safely. So other things to think about, you want to reduce the amount of light in your bedroom overall. So your room should be dark. Do curb your electronics before you go to bed. Reduce the amount of, I find that I really do need to stop using my computer about 2 hours before bedtime. Even with the f.lux software on it, it just works better for me to be able to sleep better if I'm not on my computer, right up until bedtime. So in conclusion, blue light in the day is okay. Blue light at night is the blight. If you wish for sweet dreams 2 hours before bed, turn off the screens and read a book instead. I was channeling Emily Dickinson when I was finishing up my talk, so I got a little rhymey-dimey here on you. So I was wondering if there were any questions, Carrie or Stephanie, anything that came up in the chat?
I am not seeing any questions in the chat. Stephanie, is there any that you got?
I don't see any either, and I know we are up against the time here, but we have recorded this and we will be sending it out to our group. We will also include her contact information, so if you do have questions, you can always reach out to her directly or reach out to Carrie or myself, and we can get questions to her as well.
Okay, great.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Carrie. My pleasure.
Yay, awesome.
So,
all right. I think we're going to wrap up because it is like 1 minute till 1, so that was absolute perfect timing. So I do appreciate everyone being here. We will see you for May's meeting. What's the date on that, Stephanie? Do you have it on the tip of your tongue?
It will be Tuesday, May 18th. So
Okay.
look for registration information for that meeting, and we will have topic information as well.
Absolutely. And I need everybody to remember May 4th. May 4th, we are going to be doing the stand down event for general industry. So if you're still on here, give a clap emoji to Delia. We thank you so much. That was wonderful. I see some clapping, so wonderful. Awesome. Good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.